Change is about survival. Change management is about modifying or transforming organizations in order to maintain or improve their effectiveness. Change is especially necessary in organizations that aim to prosper in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. Change is a key source of competitive advantage. Let's take a look back in time. In 1968, Peter Drucker coined the phrase "age of discontinuity" to describe the way change forces disruptions into the routine of our lives. Then, in 1970, Alvin Toffler described in his book Future Shock a trend towards accelerating speeds of change and showed how social and technological norms had shorter lifespans with each generation. In 1978, Derek Abel described strategic windows and stressed the importance of the entry and exit timing of any given strategy. Forward to 1983, Noel Tissey wrote that because we are all beings of habit, we tend to repeat what we are comfortable with. In 1990, Richard Pascal wrote that relentless change requires that businesses continuously reinvent themselves, and penned his famous maxim, "Nothing feels like success." Peter Schwartz observed in 1991 that strategic outcomes cannot be known in advance, introducing scenario planning and the likeliness of occurrence evaluation. 1996 is when Adrian Slowotsky claimed that recognizing the patterns behind value migrations is necessary if we wish to understand the world of chaotic change and develop a sense of strategic anticipation. In 1997, Clayton Christensen took the position that outstanding companies lose their market leadership when confronted with disruptive technology. And more recently, in 2000, Gary Hamel discussed strategic decay, the notion that the value of all strategies, no matter how brilliant, will decay over time. Back to the present, and now some business planners are starting to use a complexity theory approach to strategy. This can be thought of as chaos with a dash of order, not quite so unpredictable. It involves multiple agents interacting in such a way that a glimpse of structure may appear. But you don't have to be Einstein to realize that all these theories are relative. One must apply these theories as one sees fit. Considering that, perhaps the next ideas will be something like business relativism management or pragmatism, but that's for another day. Still, some might ask, why change? Let's consider an adapted quote from Darwin. "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." That said, we could safely say that change is all about survival. Generally, change arises from the development of new products, the entry of new competition, changes in consumer tastes and preferences, shifting socio-political, economic and cultural frameworks, advancement in technology and new emergent markets. Also, accessible technologies, access to new suppliers and markets, fast access to information, and quality improvement have led to exponentially increased competition. So the earlier the need for change is recognized, greater the number of options for successful implementation. Put simply, change is a key source of competitive advantage and survival, which brings us to how. Philosophically speaking, for change to work, the discontent with the reality must be far greater than one's tolerance of it. In other words, you won't change unless you're really unhappy with the present situation. But hold on, some smart guys have come up with a formula for change. Promoted by Beckhard and Harris way back in 1987, the formula was designed to assess the relative success of a change program. It's a simple yet powerful tool that offers a fast first impression of the possibilities and conditions to change an organization. The formula goes like this. D means dissatisfaction with the current situation. V stands for vision of what is possible, very important, and we'll build on this in a moment. F is for first actions that can be taken towards the vision. The result must be bigger than R, the resistance. Then, if so, change is possible. It's quite important to remember that the first three elements in this formula must not be 0 or near 0, otherwise the resistance will be far too dominant for any potential change implementation. Perhaps we could illustrate this a bit. To begin with, we have the first three elements. And here comes resistance. Let's throw in some changes needed. Now, if resistance is bigger, then change will not happen and it can create some business disruption. You must work on the first three elements so they will be dominant enough to move all along. We can't forget to talk about vision. Very important for all kinds of management and business matters. Vision is the guiding philosophy of the company or brand plus a tangible image. The vision must be a realistic, credible and attractive future for the organization. Vision must also empower and encourage leaders and followers to implement change. Successful change is hinged on a picture of a desirable future. It is important that the vision be easy to communicate, which brings us to Kotter's change phases. In 1996, Professor John Kotter stated that for a successful change implementation, it's crucial to follow the 8 phases of change. You have to establish a sense of urgency. If people think that the organization is doing fine, there will be little motivation for change. Create a coalition of change champions. Develop a clear vision to empower and encourage. Share the vision, as clear communication is essential to rally the troops. Empower people to clear obstacles and foster a can-do culture. Secure short-term wins, as this will build confidence in the strategy. Consolidate and keep moving to utilize the power of momentum. And finally, anchor the change to prevent old habits creeping in. But that's not all. Real change requires a subtle, relationship-driven approach and is broad-based rather than narrow and built on inclusion instead of exclusion. Therefore, collaboration is the base for growth, and to achieve that, here's the core for collaboration and change. There must be a widespread perceived need for change. Successful change starts only when the people in the organization take a hard look at their own competitive situation. Effective communication is key to getting the word out and achieving employee participation. Employee engagement brings participation in decision-making and gives a sense of involvement, increasing the probability of commitment to change. Change is only possible if all stakeholders are willing to participate. It is this human element which helps or hinders successful implementation of change. Change is pervasive in our society and a fact of life in organizations. How well you manage change in the coming years will be a key source of competitive advantage and will differentiate you from others in the future. We're living in exponential times. The longer it takes to initiate a change program, the greater the gap will grow between the reality and the vision, which will lead to exponentially greater risks whilst the competition steams ahead. There's no other option but change.